On a dry afternoon in August of 1979, in Jasper County, Iowa, a John Deere dealership owner stood in the middle of his lot and laughed at a tractor he had just paid $75 for. It sat off to the side, half buried in dust, tires cracked, paint burned away by years of sun. A 1952 Farmall M, 38 horsepower when it left the factory in Rock Island, Illinois. Nearly 5,000 pounds of cast iron and steel. Built to pull, not impress. Now it looked like scrap. $75, the dealer said again, shaking his head, smiling for the benefit of the three mechanics standing behind him. That's about $75 too much. The men chuckled. One of them kicked the rear tire. It didn't move. Across the lot, leaning quietly against the tailgate of a faded 1968 Ford pickup, stood Harold Vance, 71 years old. Same farm since 1946. Same land his father broke with horses before him. He didn't laugh. Didn't say anything at all. Just watched. Let me tell you about Harold Vance. He wasn't the kind of man you notice first. Not in a room. Not in a crowd. His presence didn't demand attention. It earned it slowly, through stillness, through patience. His hands were the kind that told stories without words. Thick, scarred, permanently marked by oil that had worked its way into the skin decades ago and never left. He had owned that Farmall M once, bought it used in 1958 for $1,200 cash after a good corn year, ran it for nearly 20 years, plowed with it, cultivated with it, pulled wagons heavier than anyone said it should. And then in 1975, he sold it. Times were changing. Bigger machines, more power, faster work. He didn't argue. He just let it go. Have you ever let something go because the world told you it was time, even when you weren't sure it was? Because Harold had. And now, for years later, he was looking at it again. Different hands, different eyes, same machine. The dealer walked over to him, still smiling. You know this thing? He asked. Harold nodded once. Used to. Well, the dealer said, gesturing toward the tractor, you didn't miss much letting it go. Engine's probably locked solid. We're pulling it apart next week. Scrap whatever's left. Harold looked at the tractor, really looked, at the way it sat, at the angle of the front axle, at the slight tilt of the exhaust pipe. Then he said something that made the men behind the dealer laugh again. It'll run. The dealer blinked, then smiled wider. Run. Yeah. The laugh came louder this time. Not cruel, not exactly, but public, performative. The kind of laugh meant to make sure everyone else heard it too. This? The dealer said, tapping the hood. This thing hasn't run in years. Harold didn't move. Didn't say it had, he replied. The dealer shook his head, still smiling. You're telling me there's something in there worth saving? Harold's eyes didn't leave the tractor. I'm telling you, he said quietly. You don't know what you've got. The dealer turned to his mechanics. You hear that? He said. We've got ourselves a treasure. More laughter. Harold pushed off the truck, walked toward the tractor, slow, unhurried, like he had all the time in the world, and as he reached out and placed his hand on the faded red hood, the dealer realized something about the old man he hadn't noticed before. He wasn't guessing. The hood was warm, not from heat, from memory. That's what it felt like. Anyway, Harold ran his hand along the metal, fingers tracing scratches that most men wouldn't even see, but he remembered each one, where it came from, what year it happened, what field he was in when it did. The dealer watched him, arms folded now, amusement fading, curiosity taking its place. You really think there's something in that engine? He asked. Harold nodded once. Didn't take it apart when you got it? The dealer shook his head. Not yet. Then you don't know. Let me tell you about that engine. A 4-cylinder inline, 248 cubic inches, cast iron block, built in an era when engines weren't designed to be replaced. They were designed to be rebuilt, over and over again. The kind of engine that could sit still for years and still have something left inside it. Harold stepped back. Mind if I try something? The dealer hesitated, then shrugged. Be my guest. The mechanic stepped aside, grinning, expecting a show. Harold climbed up onto the tractor seat. It creaked under his weight. Familiar sound. He reached down, checked the gear, neutral, pulled the choke, turned the ignition. Nothing. Of course not. The dealer chuckled softly. Harold didn't react. He climbed back down, walked around to the front, grabbed the hand crank, slotted it into place. Now the mechanics leaned forward. One of them whispered, "He's serious. Have you ever known you were right? Even when everyone around you had already decided you were wrong. Because that's what this looked like." Harold wrapped his hand around the crank, gave a slow pull, then another. The engine coughed. Just once. The laughter stopped. Harold adjusted the choke slightly, pulled again. Another cough. Longer this time. The dealer straightened. "That's not possible," he said quietly. Harold didn't answer. He kept pulling. Steady, measured, like he wasn't trying to force it. Just wake it up. And then, on the fourth pull, the engine turned over. It didn't roar to life. Not right away. It stumbled, coughed, shook itself awake, like something that hadn't been disturbed in a long time. But it was alive. The sound was uneven at first, rough, out of rhythm, but it was there, deep in the block, steadying itself, finding its timing again. The entire lot went quiet. No one laughed now. The dealer took a step closer. Then another. "How?" he started, but didn't finish. Harold climbed back onto the seat, adjusted the throttle, listened, really listened. The engine smoothed out, not perfect, but strong, stronger than it had any right to be. Let me tell you about what happens inside an engine like that. Modern engines rely on precision tolerances, thin components, and high-speed efficiency. They're built to perform, but not always to last. Older engines like the Farmall M were different. Thick cast iron, lower compression, slower operation. That means less stress per cycle and more forgiveness over time. Even after years of sitting, if the core components were protected, they could come back. Not easily, but fully. Harold let it idle. The sound settled into something steady now. Confident, the dealer walked up beside the tractor, looked at the engine, then at Harold. "I was going to scrap this," he said. Harold nodded. "I know." The dealer ran his hand along the hood. Same motion Harold had made earlier. Different understanding now. "What did you see?" he asked. Harold looked down at the engine. "Didn't see," he said. "Remembered." The dealer let that sit. Then he laughed again. But this time it wasn't the same. It was quieter, respectful, almost embarrassed. "I guess I missed it," he said. Harold climbed down, wiped his hands on his overalls. "You didn't miss it," he said calmly. "You just didn't know where to look." The dealer nodded slowly. Then he said something no one expected. "Would you help me rebuild it?" The mechanics looked at him, surprised. Harold didn't answer right away. He looked at the tractor, then at the dealer. Then he nodded once. And what they found inside that engine over the next 16 years changed everything the dealer thought he knew about machines. They didn't rebuild it all at once. That's not how it happened. The tractor stayed at the dealership, parked inside now, not outside, covered, protected. Every winter, when business slowed, Harold would come by, once a week, sometimes twice. He never rushed, didn't treat it like a job, more like a conversation that had been paused years ago, and was now continuing. They pulled ahead in January of 1981. Valves worn but intact. Cylinder walls? Surprisingly clean. By 1985, they had replaced the piston rings, cleaned the carburetor, rewired the ignition system. But the real moment came in 1995, 16 years after that first day, when they opened the lower block. The dealer stood beside Harold as they drained the oil. Black, thick, but not ruined. Inside the crankcase, everything was still there. Original, crankshaft, bearings, even the stamp from the factory. Untouched, protected by something most modern engines don't have anymore. Time and patience. The dealer leaned back, shook his head slowly. "All these years," he said, "I thought newer meant better." Harold didn't respond. Didn't need to. The engine answered for him. They finished the rebuild that spring. Painted it. Not perfect, but honest. And that summer, at the Jasper County Fair, the same tractor that had been bought for $75 pulled a full load sled across the field in front of a crowd that had no idea what they were really watching. Let me tell you what happened after that. The dealer changed. Not overnight, but steadily. He started keeping machines longer, fixing instead of replacing, listening more to farmers, to mechanics, to the quiet details most people ignored. Harold kept coming by, even after the tractor was finished, sometimes just to sit, sometimes just to listen to it run. He passed away in October of 2001. 73 years on that same land. The tractor stayed, still running, still pulling, still teaching. Have you ever watched something outlast every expectation anyone had for it? Because that's what that machine became. Not just proof of durability, proof of understanding, proof that knowing something deeply matters more than replacing it quickly. The dealer still owns it, still runs it once a year. And every time he does, he tells the same story about the day he laughed and the day he learned. Some machines don't break down. They wait for someone who remembers how they were meant to run. If you've ever known someone who understood things that others overlooked, someone quiet, but always right when it mattered, tell me about them in the comments. I read every one. And if you want to hear about the farmer in southern Illinois who ran the same combine for 32 harvest seasons without a single major failure, that story is coming. You want to be here for it.